So this is the new Razer Blade 16. It's got Intel's shiny new 13th Gen Raptor Lake CPU and the new 40 series GPU from NVIDIA. We got an early preview of this laptop back at CES this year, but we finally have one here at the studio to run our tests and share our experience with you guys. I think this is probably going to set the benchmark for being the fastest 16-inch gaming laptop on the market for 2023. Razer basically took all of our feedback from last year with the Blade 15, tweaked the chassis a little bit to add some features, and gave it more power, and it's awesome. But there's a catch. And you probably guessed it, the price. You see, Razer is only offering 2 SKUs of the Blade 16. I have the base model that comes with a Core i9-13950HX with 32 threads, 32 gigs of RAM, a TB SSD, an RTX 4080 with 12 gigs of VRAM, and a 16-inch Quad HD 240Hz display. And it costs $3,600. The next SKU goes for an insane $4,300. And with that, you get twice the storage and an RTX 4090 laptop GPU, along with that unique dual UHD to Full HD switch mini LED display. $4,300 is a lot of money for a gaming laptop. If I had that kind of money, I still wouldn't consider it because I know there are going to be some great bang for buck options coming from ROG, Acer, Lenovo, and Dell that are going to cost a lot less with similar specs. But you got to realize, this laptop is strictly catered towards a niche audience. One that values superior build quality, the overall fit and finish in a stealthy design, and more power that they could take with them everywhere they go. Now from the outside, Razer hasn't really updated the design on the Blade 16. It still comes in this matte black anodized aluminum chassis with the green Razer logo that's LED backlit at the front. It's still a huge fingerprint magnet, so I would recommend a microfiber cloth handy for the occasional wipe downs. In terms of build quality, Razer hasn't cut any corners since this still feels robust and as premium as their previous blades. I did notice that the hinge to support this massive 16-inch screen has gotten better in terms of smoothness and overall rigidity. It doesn't exhibit a lot of wobble, which is great. And of course, you can open it with one hand. Now, if you're coming from the Blade 15, the overall form factor has increased slightly. So the length is the same, coming in at 14 inches, but the depth has increased from 9.25 inches to 9.61 inches to accommodate the 16:10 display. But you know what? The biggest difference you're going to notice right away is in the Z height of this laptop, because it's sitting at 0.87 inches or 22 millimeters versus 0.67 inches or 16.9 millimeters. That's 30% thicker compared to last year, and that also naturally leads to more weight. Now, supposedly, Razer did revamp the cooling system inside to allow additional power to the new CPU and GPU, so we'll find out if it's any good in terms of temperatures and performance, so stick around for that. The included 330 watt GAN power adapter is surprisingly compact. In fact, it's much smaller than the one that comes with the MSI GT77 Titan, so bonus points to Razer for that. But I am not a fan of this braided cable because it is extremely difficult to manage, and the power connector is still that ancient 90-degree connector, which is just super unconventional, especially when you plug it into the laptop the other way around. It blocks a USB port, which doesn't make any sense. Razer, just please fix this. I mean, how difficult is it to design something that is just user-friendly? It's 2023, guys. Come on. The interior space hasn't changed all that much. They have brought the exact same layout from the Blade 15 with the larger keycaps. I do love this minimal and sleek look of this keyboard. If you know me, I'm a huge advocate for anything matte black, so this pretty much ticks that box, no problem. The switches could use some work. There isn't a whole lot of key travel to work with, so if you're a hardcore typist, you might want to look into something from ROG or even Legion, because those laptop keyboards are just solid. But regardless, this is still a solid keyboard that gets the job done. I will say that chroma lighting on this laptop is absolutely gorgeous. Razer still has one of the best RGB setups, and you can play around with a ton of effects through Synapse. You won't notice any color bleed with the lighting, and I really hope other laptop manufacturers adapt this. The trackpad is massive and awesome. It is a precision glass surface, so navigating within windows is a breeze with gestures. And the port setup remains the same, just like the Blade 15. So on the left-hand side, you get power in, two USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports. a 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C port with 100 watts of PD charging support, and an audio jack. Switching over to the right-hand side, you get a Kensington lock, HDMI 2.1, another Type-A port, and a Thunderbolt 4 port. And you also get a full-size SD card reader, which, if you're a creator, you're gonna love. It's also a really fast one too, so I was quickly able to transfer raw 4K footage from my camera and start editing on this laptop right away. So this is what the webcam looks like on the new Blade 16. Now, the quality has improved compared to the Blade 15 because Razer is using a 1080p sensor, and the microphone sounds really good. There is better depth to my voice, there's very less noise, so it's perfect for Skype and Zoom meetings. And of course, I think you can also use it for gaming as well, which is great. Another cool feature that Razer's added to the Blade 16 is a physical shutter right above the sensor. So if you're someone who values privacy, this is an excellent feature. Razer, bonus points for including this. The two front-facing speakers on the Blade 16 sound great. They've actually added two subwoofers at the bottom to sort of add a little bit of bass response to the overall sound signature, and it sounds pretty good. I wouldn't say it's noticeably better compared to the Blade 15, but still, it offers that well-balanced audio experience. So if you do listen to music while you're in your bedroom or your private space, then this is fine. But yeah, I would still take this setup over anything that's bottom facing. Shifting gears to the display, and this thing's equipped with a 16-inch 16:10 aspect ratio display. It was just a matter of time for Razer to implement a larger screen that we've all been asking for. The taller aspect ratio is just great for filling up the screen with content. It comes in clutch, especially when you're editing videos, because you do get that extra room for your timeline, which is great. I do have the spec that comes in QHD at 240 Hz, which honestly is perfect for this form factor. I had no issues with window scaling set to 125%. It's sharp and color accurate as it covers 100% sRGB, 89% Adobe RGB, and 100% P3. If you're a creator, you're gonna love editing on this display, and gaming on it was a fantastic experience, guys. It's just an overall impressive combination of resolution, speed, and color reproduction. Now, keep in mind that this has the ability to dynamically switch between 120 to 240 Hz, as well as 60 to 120 Hz if you're looking to preserve some battery life when you're on the go. This is a very, very bright panel. Our sample was able to sustain a peak level of around 500 nits, so outdoor visibility shouldn't be an issue. Getting underneath the hood, you have quick access to two RAM modules. A maximum supported capacity is 64 gigabytes. The primary NVMe SSD is actually hidden underneath this bracket, and the drive speeds are about the same compared to the Blade 15 from last year. We got around 7 gigabytes per second on read and 5 gigabytes per second on writes. You can also expand the storage by adding another M.2 drive, but once again, keep in mind that just like the Blade 15, because of this latest setup, you're only limited to a single-sided M.2 drive. So what that means is you can't install drives that have chips on both sides. So Razer has packed the Blade 16 with a 95.2 watt-hour battery, which seems pretty generous for a laptop this size, and you'd expect the Blade 16 to get some amazing battery life away from the plug. Well, not really, and there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, for whatever reason, Raptor Lake's performance cores just don't seem to hand light tasks off to the efficiency cores like they should. Add to that the faster 240 Hz refresh rate display along with the Core i9 CPU, and the Blade can only pull off for about 6 hours here. It does start climbing the charts a bit more when it's used for watching videos, but it's still far behind where we'd like it to be. But it does get over an hour in our heavy load test, and that's not too bad at first glance, but you also have to remember it's in one of the lowest power states here in balance mode. Now, I need to hit the pause button here and talk about a little pet peeve that I've had with Razer Blades in the past, and that's limiting CPU and GPU power way too much. So last year they launched one with an RTX 3080 Ti and a 12900H, which sounded good on paper, but it was not so fast because both were so power limited. The Blade 15 cost like $5,000 and it got beaten by laptops that cost less than half as much. The problem was the Blade 15's ability to actually cool down those high-end components. Basically, Razer was trying to cram a ridiculous amount of specs into a compact chassis, and that meant sacrifices had to be made somewhere. So instead of going down the path of screaming loud fans or insanely hot temperatures, they dialed back performance. But with the Blade 16, it's a completely different story, since there's a massive update to the cooling design that also has a lot more airflow, and that gives just a lot more flexibility. So overall, there are two general power modes on this laptop. Silent and balanced are presets that can be toggled with the flip of a switch, But there's also more customization since the CPU has 4 more levels along with a boost setting, and the GPU gets 3 power modes. So this is what Razer's power modes look like, and you can pause it here if you need more time with it since there is a lot to take in. First of all, in the standard balance mode, the CPU runs at Intel's defaults, while the RTX 4080 in this laptop gets capped at 135 watts. But shift over to the custom modes, and that's where you're going to notice things to get a little interesting. The GPU can go as far as 175 watts, while in low, NVIDIA's Whisper mode gets enabled alongside a peak power of 135 watts, which is actually still a lot compared to last generation. The 13950HX goes from 35 watts in low mode, but it can hit 90 watts if there's a load detected on the graphics card. But if the GPU is idling, it can gobble back up to 130 watts. But let's check out how Razer's claims actually line up with reality. Now, to double check that, I'm going to be using the silent and balanced presets along with the boost CPU mode and the high GPU mode. So from the power side, balanced and silent directly align with the medium and low custom settings, while boost is getting above 100 watts, and we even saw situations where it hit over 115 watts. But check out those temperatures, guys. Nothing got above 87 degrees, and that's pretty mind-blowing when you consider boost has this laptop running over 100 watts. The only thing you need to be aware of is balanced also cuts down clock speeds by a whole lot. The GPU gets a lot of love with a constant 155 watts along with super impressive temperatures for such a thin laptop. The most impressive thing though is the noise levels. I was expecting this thing to be ridiculously loud, but it isn't. Just over 53 decibels here makes this one of the quietest gaming laptops I've seen, at least when it's running full out in gaming. A lot of other devices tend to hang around 50 decibels in balanced and can almost hit 60 decibels in their highest power mode. And let me put that into context for you, because this Blade 16 is running its components at almost the same power as the chunky, heavy MSI GT77 Titan that I looked at recently. But it gets similar temperatures and it puts out much less noise. That just points towards some great engineering on Razer's part, so kudos to you guys for that. But does that lead to great performance? Well, let's pause right here in Cinebench to set the stage a bit, since you'll see 2 results for the Blade 16. Balanced and boost both get some interesting results. While balanced cuts the 13950HXs to just 51 watts, it's still able to match or even beat some of the fastest laptops from last year running at 90 watts or more. That really shows how fast Raptor Lake really is, even at such a low TDP setting. Boost, on the other hand, gets performance levels that are up there with this year's GT77 Titan and way beyond anything from 2022. Now, since single-core performance isn't power limited, the Blade ties the MSI here since both laptops allow their processors to hit maximum turbo speeds. The other real-world apps that focus purely on CPU performance basically repeat the original Cinebench multi-core result, with the Blade 16 almost matching the Titan when boost mode is turned on, while balanced equalizes some of the fastest laptops from 2022. Even longer tests that favor better cooling show how well Razer's managed to design this laptop. Since the Blade offers different levels of performance with its given modes, it's easy to choose a setting that best suits what you're actually doing rather than having a one-size-fits-all solution. Of course, there are still some hiccups like Photoshop, but if you look at all the results together, it's pretty obvious this is a program limitation rather than a hardware issue. On the other hand, both Intel and NVIDIA need to look a bit closer at their output performance in Adobe Premiere Pro. I mean, it's good, like really good, but it could be better when you consider how much horsepower these new laptops have. I mean, look at what this Blade can do in DaVinci Resolve. It isn't even close, guys. This thing is just so much better than anything from last year since it can flex NVIDIA's dual NVENC engines for crazy fast export times. Next up, we have gaming performance at 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. And for that, we use the same 2 modes, so boost and balanced as before. The only difference is the CPU is in boost mode and the GPU is set to its highest setting, which is high in Synapse. So let's roll the results. All right, I think the conclusion for this Blade 16 is going to be pretty easy. I never thought I was going to compare this to something like the MSI GT77 Titan, but guys, this laptop gets 90% of the performance as that MSI beast in a laptop that's just smaller, more portable, and quieter, which also happens to run cooler. It's also got a massive 16-inch fast, bright, and color-accurate display, and the build quality is just one of the best that you can find for a gaming laptop. Now, when you bring pricing into the equation, it's a really expensive investment. But the thing you gotta realize is that you're not losing performance like what you did with the Blade 15 that was roughly the same price. In fact, this laptop is $1,000 less than the GT77 Titan that we're showing in the benchmarks. And in my books, that just goes to show that the Blade 16 is an overall superior laptop in almost every possible way. And look, I know there's going to be a lot of hate for Razer out there, but there's no denying that the Blade 16 is a freaking impressive device on almost every level. They took pretty much all of our critique from previous Blades in the past, and they've improved this one in almost every way. And the end result is just a great overall gaming laptop. So on that note, thanks so much for watching. I hope you're able to take away everything that you needed to know about the new Razer Blade 16. Let us know what you guys think about in the comments about the performance, and if you are looking to pick up one of the fastest laptops for 2023, would this be on the top of your list? But I also have to mention that I'm excited to take a look at some of the other offerings from ROG, Acer, and Dell, and Legion. Those laptops are looking pretty good as well, so it will be an interesting rest of the year. I'm gonna peace out, and don't forget to spend responsibly, my friends.